Well, hello and welcome to Make Yourself Motherhood Edition. It is my pleasure to start the panel From Nutrition to Self-Care, How to Prioritize Yourself After Birth. And I'm so excited to have you two ladies here with me today as the speakers, a doula and a nutritionist. I couldn't have asked for a better duo, so I'm so excited. So just give you a background on myself. Michelle, you know me. Michelle is part of Scientific Advisory Board, so we work together. I'm a dietitian nutritionist, senior director of scientific and clinical affairs at Ritual. I'm also a mom of two. This topic that we are covering today is very dear to me because I actually gave birth. I have a 4-month-old daughter, and I'm struggling. Yeah, so I'm so excited about this panel today and this discussion. I think I can use a lot of information. Many moms, many new moms can benefit a lot from this conversation today. So Lori, let's start with you. If you could give us some introduction about yourself and what you do, that would be great.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lori Bregman, and I'm a doula. I'm the author of The Mindful Mom to Be and Mama Stay, and I have a deck of cards coming out soon called the Mindful Doula Deck, and practices that help you thrive through pregnancy, birth, and into new motherhood. I've been a doula for 18 years and a coach. Support people through the whole entire journey. It's never been about the birth for me. It's been about supporting them from conception, sometimes before, all through the pregnancy, birth, and into new motherhood. So that's how I work. I have a Mindful Mom to Be virtual group coaching program, 12-week, that I really try to give moms the tools to be more mindful and really lock in the self-care and give them all these tips and tricks so they have a toolkit going into new motherhood.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I have so much respect for doulas because you guys mothers the mother. That's how I usually like you explain the doulas. They mother the mother and you nourish the whole family, like for the transition for the new baby. So it's so amazing like to have your experience and expertise here today. And Michelle, my fellow dietitian nutritionist.
So my name is Michelle Davenport. Like Mastaneh, I'm also a PhD RD, and I work with Ritual as an advisor and some other companies as well. My background is pretty weird. I got my PhD in nutrition at NYU and then trained at UCSF. And after that, decided to jump straight into food and tech. So that's what I've done for the majority of my career. And I launched 2 startups called Zesty and one of my own called Raised Real, which is a children's food company. And then I realized, wow, this is a really fast pace. And when I had 2 kids, I realized I kind of need to take a little bit of a step back and just slow things down to be a little bit more intentional. So these days, professionally, that looks like more consulting and advising, thinking about the next business, but kind of just taking a little bit more time. And I think, and this is something I wanted to talk about later on as well, when we start to talk about self-care and allowing yourself to take that mental break if you need to and not feeling bad about it, and really just like owning the period when you need to kind of nurture yourself. And I feel like that's the period that I'm in right now. Yeah. Good timing for this panel.
Exactly. Exactly. Cannot wait to get more information from you guys. The focus of this panel is on prioritizing yourself after birth, but just thinking about after birth, when you give birth, it's very difficult to think about anything other than your brand new bundle of joy, those pooping, spitting, sometimes very loud creatures that are gonna be our roommates, and we need to take care of them to help them survive. So it's really hard when you think about that and then you think about prioritizing yourself. So the first question we have for this panel is the recommendation from you guys on how to prioritize yourselves, especially focusing on self-care. So any tips that you have on the self-care that can help new mothers prioritize themselves. So Lori, we can start with you.
Okay. Well, there's a saying in the Kabbalah that the woman is the light of the house, and when the light goes out, everybody is kind of lost. I think there's, it's hard to take care of yourself sometimes when there is no time to take care of yourself. And it's really carving out the time, even if it's 5 minutes, and it doesn't have to be a lot of different, it can be easy things. I always say for my girls, even if it's just start with a morning ritual, which can be reading 1 page in a spiritual book, or doing a 5-minute meditation, or 3 rounds of breath, or writing just a page in a journal, just something that they ease into the day with. Mm-hmm. And then another one is a nightly transition. Like we transition our babies to sleep, right? But we just usually hit the pillow and go to sleep, or we're on our phone, or we're trying to get a million things done. And to take the time to really transition yourself to sleep as if you would your child, and putting yourself to sleep and caring for yourself as you would your child, I think is a way to self-care. To not compare yourself to anybody else, because you are one of a kind, your family's one of a kind, your child's one of a kind. I always create a bubble of peace. We create this bubble of peace ritual where this is the energy that they simmer in through their pregnancy, birth, and into the postpartum period. And you stay in that bubble, and basically move things out that are not feeding that bubble of peace, which could be like comparing myself, or judging myself, or being hard on myself. But I do feel the comparison, and really just focusing on you and this child and this baby and your family, because there's no other like you, and you can see these things on in Instagram or wherever, but everybody puts a pretty face out there. Nobody really knows what's going on behind closed doors. So it's like when you feel yourself kind of going, oh, FOMO, or I should be doing this, and especially when you hear those words, I should be, that's when you really reel it back in and focus on yourself and what you can do right now in the present, and just be with your baby, because you're doing something. I mean, you're bonding, you're connecting, you're recharging. Another tool I do is I always say that the postpartum period after birth, it's like you're on a boat. There's a land that you just left, right? And now you're on this boat, and it's surrounded by mists, and you're with your family on this boat. And every day the boat starts to drift a little bit, and the mist starts to clear, and you're like, oh my God, there's another land. And eventually you get there, and you get off, and you kind of start your life. So it's kind of in that in-between period that you're in transition, you're in integration, right? You're figuring everything out. Your baby's trying to figure things out. You're trying to get to know your baby, bond, figure out breastfeeding. And my suggestion to everybody is just allow yourself to be in the boat. And there is no time period that you're supposed to be on the other side. Because some women get out of that boat in a month. Some women are like, oh my God, I finally just got to the other side. It's been 2 years. So I do know when you try to get back to what was, that's gone. And if you try to move forward too fast, you're going to miss the important pieces that are going to get you there. So it's just like, if you can just be present, be in the moment, and just really dive in and stay in that boat, you will get to the other side a lot quicker, and a lot, like aware, and like with all the tools that you need for this particular child. So, yeah.
I love that example. It gives you like so much visual and thinking about like how you can survive with the boat example. That's very amazing.
Yeah, and it's a temporary period. This is not how your life's going to be. And it can be the most magical period and the most hard period. And especially during right now, when sometimes we might not have the support that we actually would have had, like family around, or, and other things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is really good to think about that. That what I always like told myself, like I shouldn't have so much expectation from myself. And I think that what you were saying was the same, like confirming that what I was always telling myself. If I have too much expectation, like comparing myself to other people, it would be so hard to stay on the boat and like ride the boat. So I think thinking about that and thinking the life after having kids like a boat, I think that really helps you, give you that peace, so you can like go ahead and proceed. So that's very interesting.
I think that's why you're also more, I don't know about you, Mastaneh, but with the second child, I was much more confident and more at ease, because I think with the first one, you have no idea what's coming along when you're in that boat, right? You're like, when is the next piece of land coming? Anybody? Right? And then you realize, oh, okay, it's been a few months and things do get better. And then eventually they're like walking around and, you know, little people. But by the time you have a second one, and if you ever have a second one, it's like, okay, I know how this goes. There is some light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's like you know the map to the next land.
Right. And every baby's different, so you still have to. What worked with the first one might not work with the second. And then usually I find that my second time moms, they're so anxious about the first baby, like, you know, their birth plan comes about. It's not about like my hospital thing or this is what I want at my birth anymore. It's about, make sure you know how to feed the baby, and this is when they go to sleep, and this is what, you know, he likes to eat, and this is what he gets for breakfast, and like, you know, this is when he eats and goes to sleep, and he likes his little, and is the baby gonna be okay if when the new baby comes, and I have guilt about, you know, it becomes all that stuff. So it's a whole other thing too as second time moms. You have your other boats.
I agree.
Exactly. But I think it makes it harder to prioritize yourself when you have like second child, like, because you need to think about the first one, you already have a little one you need to take care of, and then, okay, I need to think about myself too. How can I make myself, so how can I help myself go through this journey? That becomes challenging sometimes. So Michelle, do you have any tips on like self-care, how you can take care of yourself during?
Yeah, well, immediately after birth, it was always known to me that I had to take care of myself, because I think being ethnically Vietnamese, it's a different experience. It was expected for me to rest, and my mom would get really mad at me if I like tried to leave the house and do anything crazy and go for a run, you know, and like kind of exert myself. It's a different expectation. And so it was, in speaking to other people, it was almost surprising to me once I compared what was expected of my, you know, my family and my culture to what is in American culture, which is essentially thrusting women back into work 2 weeks after they've given birth. You know, when we talk about nutrition, even if you look at the studies and the research that's out there, most of it focuses on nutrition for pregnancy, right? And there's like nothing on postpartum recovery. I mean, you might have a few pieces here and there, but it's almost as if they look at a mom as a vector for producing a child, and then they forget that, you know, she needs to be nurtured also, because you really can't nurture a child unless you take care of yourself. And physiologically also, right? We know that the DHA in a mom's body affects how much DHA goes into milk and production of the baby's brain and all that. So if you're depleted, you know, internally, there's no way that you can actually take care of another baby, especially if you're super tired and not there mentally or emotionally. So I always noticed that disconnect there. And I still don't really know how things would change, I guess, here in the US culturally, unless a lot of mind shifts happen. But for me, the way that I kind of approach self-care is, okay, I know that, you know, our culture does not value, here in the US, our culture does not value the postpartum period. In other countries, they literally block out periods of time. You look at China, Japan, Korea, they all have a 30-day period. Even in Israel, they have postpartum centers. You go to Central America, they have something called the Quarantena. And in other Aboriginal and indigenous cultures, there's a whole community, a village, you know, we always hear about the village of people who take care of the moms. And there's a period that's blocked out to cherish and respect the postpartum period and to help the mom nourish herself, because they know that there are effects, good effects and bad effects that come out of that period. So for me, I kind of had to set up a system of my own. I'm really big on habit forming and making sure that I have things set up in a way where it's easier for me. A good example is making sure I get, you know, like fresh fruits and vegetables delivered all the time. For my first, I had to make sure that I had, you know, play dates scheduled and someone to take care of her, you know, while I was recovering. But I think it's really setting up a system that helped me a lot. Making sure that I had food systems in place and making sure I had nourishing foods around me. Because you're busy and you're taking care of 1 or 2 kids and you don't have the right things in place, it's really easy to just want to grab the nearest, you know, like frozen pizza or something and call it a day. But that's not going to nourish you and help you, you know, giving birth to another human being. So yeah, I think setting up a system is probably my biggest tip for self-care.
That's a very good tip. Yeah, to me, like when we're pregnant, like we take care of ourselves a lot more than we take care of ourselves when after we give birth. Like when you get pregnant, you have so many doctor visits. You take prenatals, you take it religiously, you make sure, I need to have enough fruits and vegetables. Like many people buy new shakers, they make smoothies, but right after you give birth, everything changes. Like, I did my job, so I gave birth, and then, okay, I have a baby I need to take care of, and you don't think about yourself from that. And the thing is that you have your healthy routine developed during pregnancy, but after you give birth, because of lack of sleep, tiredness, all the new changes, those routines, it's really hard for people to get back to those routines. And the main problem is that they don't think of themselves as a part of baby's health and baby's development. So that's why I think it makes it challenging. And I think the system development is really good tip, like with like getting like nutritious food delivered, for example, to your home. I think that's a really good tip for moms. And I want to know, like, is this just mom who need to take care of themselves, to prioritize themselves, or other people can also help them prioritize them, like for mom to prioritize themselves?
I think it shouldn't all be all on you to take care of yourself. It's healing, you know, so it's important to have people that you can rely on. If you're really lucky to have family members nearby, that's great, or having a doula help you. I know there are postpartum doulas. Lori, you could probably speak to that more. But I think it's really important to make sure that you have a network of people who are willing to help you for that time period. My neighbor just gave birth, and we're in a lockdown period right now, right? So no one can come. I felt so bad because it's her first child, and you know, they're kind of like lost right now, and it's so new to them. And usually during this period, you have people coming by offering support. So I was just trying to like drop off food, and like such a small gesture, but it's something that like they appreciated so much because there's no one out there right now. So if there's ways to kind of set up just ways, you know, different people that can come by and really help take care of you, give you blocks of time so that you can, you know, take a shower and like do the things that you need to do to take care of yourself.
How do you help like mom in that period of time?
I like too what she was saying too about the food. I think that's a big thing because I mean, especially now with what's going on, it's hard to get a meal, and they don't have time to cook. They don't have time to, you know, eat. So sometimes doing a food chain, you know, you can send out an email and do a food chain and send out a calendar where it's all your friends and family. It makes people, a lot of women today, and this is in America, and I agree with what Michelle was saying about the 40 days, the 30 days confinement. I mean, I try to really, I don't like to project things onto my clients, but I like to educate them and know that it does exist and the reason why it's so great. And then to set up a team and to set up, like, you know, we come up with these birth plans and we come up with like these things, but come up with a postpartum plan, you know? I know right now, like I was saying, people aren't getting the support. Like I know family can't come sometimes. People don't want random people coming in the house. They just, you know, with everything. So a lot of women right now today, especially are struggling because, but that the food thing is something you can do. The other thing that I always invite my clients is, as women, especially in today's American women, asking for help is looked upon as a weakness. And this is not a time you asking for help and allowing people to be there for you. Actually, you're giving them a gift to be of service, which actually makes them feel so good. People want to help you. People they want to do it. If they're offering, or even if you ask or they're calling to see, most people will call you and say, do you need anything? And you do. You probably have a list of things you need. And don't be afraid to ask. This is not a time, like, reach out, be vulnerable, like, ask for help, because you're giving somebody a gift to be able to be there for you. Yeah, I do. I like that book, The First 40 Days.
Yes.
Which, yeah, and my friend Han wrote it, and I really refer it. I have a lot of my clients, sometimes if they don't do food delivery, well, I have them put all the apps on their phone, like Instacart and, Postmates or whatever they need. The other thing is to pre-make some of her food and resting, and giving yourself permission to you don't have to respond to emails. Like, you don't have to have people come over. I think you don't have to be on. I think that's a big thing. You can set boundaries and not allow people, family members, and might piss some people off, but the people that aren't going to come and help you, but the ones that just take from you and expect you to do for them, there should be like a boundary that, you know what, you can come later. This is the time for you really just to be nourished and nurtured.
Yeah, with the like you were talking about, like, different nutrition. I'm looking, like, to the scientific literature, as like Michelle said, like, almost nothing on women postpartum health and nutrition, like how you can use, like, different foods. They don't do studies, like, for women to prioritize themselves, to take care of themselves. They need, like, evidence-based knowledge. Like, we are lucky to have people like you guys that have the experience and know based on the experience, like, what's good for, like, recovery and health. Yeah, I hope they find more. Like, I think we need to push more on our behalfs, like, for like more funding on the research for women in general, and specifically, like, even for pregnancy, postpartum, both of them are very underserved population. Even looking at their needs, when you look at the needs for lactation, it seems like a really high need, but for those who are not breastfeeding, you don't know much. Is it exactly the same as women who didn't give birth? I don't think it's the same, but there isn't any study to show, okay, do they need any specific nutrients for the recovery, for example? We need more studies, but the good thing, we have experts like you guys, so you can provide recommendations. But I was hoping we could have, like, more research to find out about more evidence-based recommendation. Another thing I wanted to talk about, when you think about the self-care, how about on the emotional levels? How can they take care of themselves on emotional, like, sometimes you have, like, different thoughts, like positive thoughts, negative thoughts. How you can take care of yourself under emotional levels?
I feel that you're going to feel everything when you're hormonal. I mean, you're not sleeping. Your heart's exploding. You're dealing with this. You're feeling this love that, like, you don't even know what to do with. Your hormones are kind of everywhere. You're used to having all this time for yourself, and now you've got this stuff. So I think the best way is just to allow whatever comes up, come up, and not be attached to it. I think if you go in there with all these expectations that it's going to be like this, and my baby's going to be like this, and my partner's going to be doing this, and I mean, I think it's like, have some ideas, but if you're so tightly, trying to control, then you're going to set up yourself up for failure. So
yeah, another thing that helped me is like, for me, like, building a sense of humor. Like, the times that I feel so miserable and I want to cry, I try to think it as something funny and just laugh at it. It helps sometimes, but I think that would be good. Just try to, okay, this is just gonna be a funny experience, funny memory later on. So I try to laugh, but it's the ups and downs. I still like, it's been 4 months for me. I'm way better, but I could remember like few months back, I was like way up and down on my emotions.
And you feel like you're crazy, but it's normal. And that's the thing is, it's just be gentle with yourself. I'd also have, whether it's a postpartum doula or, you know, a confidant, some kind of a friend that is non-judgmental and can hold space for you in a neutral way, that you can just talk to, or even journal. Just journal, and then like,
that's a good point.
Yeah, just get it out. Get it out and then let it go.
That's a very good point.
Good advice. Yeah, I would say, I don't know. I thought that the whole emotional roller coaster thing would end after a few months, but I'm a year out now and I still feel the waves, you know, like just this morning, I'm like, oh my God, like, when are these kids gonna leave the house so I can prepare for but then I'm also like, oh,
this is how girls are. I mean, we've got, you know, we're hormonal.
But I also think like getting the right nutrition helps a lot, making sure that you get good sleep. And sometimes it's funny, like I feel like a lot of problems, or not problems, but obstacles I've had with the baby also were nutrition related. Like there was a period when I was getting no sleep because Harrison, my youngest, I thought he was colicky because he was crying like crazy, but it turns out he had a dairy allergy. You know, so like paying attention to like what I was eating and what was going into his body made a world of difference, and I got more rest and then I was less irritable. Like sometimes it's like trying to pinpoint what it is that's really kind of irking you or like creating that obstacle. Or sometimes, you know, if I'm not eating well, and just because you're a nutrition expert doesn't mean that you eat well, because there are definitely days when I'm like, oh my God, I've just been eating pizza for 2 days. You know, taking a step back and trying to take care of myself always really helps too, to get better rest and feeling a little bit more stable.
Yeah, I think I agree on the nutrition. We also had a question someone asked to ask you guys on, like, when you give birth right after that, you have a really strong sense of craving. You want to eat a lot. And then during those time, again, because of so many changes, you may not eat the good nutrient dense foods. So what would be your recommendation for someone who gave birth and is craving, and what would be the building nutrition? Like what would be the foods that you guys recommend?
Yeah, well, with childbirth, so you're losing iron for sure. You're definitely losing DHA. There's a ton of micronutrients that you need to replenish, like zinc and selenium. So again, going back to making sure that you have a system and making sure that you have the right foods around you when you get home. What I did is I had a lot of small oily fish things stocked up for me. Like I love sardines and mackerel, black cod. I had a lot of nut butters and avocado and tahini. Had really good sources of high quality meat, because if you're eating like pasture raised beef or something like pasture raised pork, it has more omega-3 fats in that compared to other forms of farming. And I think really taking a look at your macronutrients, making sure that you're not getting too much carbohydrate in. Because for me, in the early days, when I first started with my milk production, I'm always craving like bagels and like really starchy foods like breads. So having an assortment of fruits and vegetables really helps with that. Like having, fruit basket waiting for you or something when you get home. Have your husband prep, some vegetables to snack on and some really good dips or something. But I think just prepping in advance really helps.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point. Dory, do you usually give recommendations to people after birth?
Exactly what she just said. Like I'm a big prep ahead. Make sure you have things stocked, because a lot of times you don't have time to grab things, and then you'll end up being like, I'll just grab like whatever's like, you know what I mean, junky food. So it's make sure you have you do some meal prepping before, and you can freeze meals. You can also, like she said, cut up vegetables, put some fruit in the, have your oily fish. Usually after birth, people are they're pretty hungry. And if I do a home birth, I usually make sure that they have food in the house. I'm always like, get food because I'm going to cook something for you afterwards. And like a lot of times it ends up because it's like 5 or 6 in the morning. I end up like, we'll make some eggs because I think eggs are good in omegas and everything. And maybe add a little spinach and put a piece of toast. But at the hospital, it's always, everybody's ordering sugarfish. They're just like, I just want sushi. Or they're ordering, they're just like,
That's true.
Postmate me some sushi, or they want a big burger. Like that's the big thing. It's like either they get like a gigantic hamburger because, like you said, the iron, or they just all they want is like what they haven't had, or they want a big deli sandwich. Like these are like, and then, but I whatever they eat after, I try to encourage like broth afterwards. Like just let's sip on some bone broth. I always definitely am like, bring your own broth, your bone broth. That's the first thing. And foods that go through you. I think that's another thing. Anything that's kind of not going to clog you up, easy to digest. Foods is good.
Yes, easy to digest. One thing with the first C-section, I was very surprised. And since this is a real place for us to talk about real issues here, after postpartum, I was not expecting the constipation that you get from, oh my God, because, well, also, they give you narcotics after having a C-section, so it makes it even worse, but you're hungry, so you're eating all this food, and you're like horribly constipated.
So true.
That's a horrible combination.
And there's so much pressure on you. They put pressure on you to poop. They're like, you have to poop.
It's true too.
You gotta poop. And then if you haven't had a C-section, the vaginal birth, you're like, if there's a lot going on down there, and you're just afraid to like, so it's like there's things you can do like,
one thing that I make sure to include in my diet is enough protein. When you look at recommended dietary allowance, it's the same. It's higher than during non-pregnancy or non-lactation. So I make sure like I have enough protein, especially like I'm from Middle East, and it's like more plant-based diet compared to like more protein-based. And when I look at like how much protein I'm getting, I'm not getting enough, and I know that it's gonna help with the satiation and satiety. So when you have protein compared to, for example, when you have carb, so I try to make sure to include that in my diet as well. Omegas, as you guys said, and the broth that really helps. It's actually we use the same thing in our culture. We use broth after giving birth, and we have like 40 days for so like usually moms come and they stay for like 40 days with you, or you go to your mom. So I was lucky. My mom came here, and then she was here to take care of me for after the delivery. And then the corona happened, and right now I'm working, and I have my mom at home that she's taking care of my kids right now. So I got lucky with that.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's a big help. And as you said, Lori, I think we need to ask for help if we need help, and unfortunately, like many of us don't do it. That emotional support we need it, not just like giving, like preparing food, giving you food, like emotional support is also important. As you said, like having a friend that don't judge you. I think that was really good tip to make sure that you have someone around you that don't judge you, so you can talk your ups and downs, negative, positive, so you can bring everything to the table and just release yourself, so you feel much better, that you say, okay, I'm gonna take care of myself. I have people that are supporting me.
And I think too, like being a mother, knowing this, and you know what it feels like to not be judged or projected upon. You should be doing this, and some people just want to be heard.
Exactly.
And so, and if you can sometimes have that empathy and compassion and put yourself, okay, I've been where she's at right now. I don't want somebody to project all over me right now. She just needs to talk, and just tell her that like everything's going to be okay. I understand how you feel. You're doing great, and you got this. And sometimes that's enough,
Exactly.
So, yeah.
That's cool. I think we had, one other question on exercise. Like we had some people asking, when do you think would be a good time to start exercising? Like even light exercise, should we wait for our first doctor visit after 6 weeks, or can we start sooner? Do you guys have any recommendation or tips on the exercise side of it?
I think it's important to get moving as soon as you can. in moderation. So right after C-section, well, I'll give you a comparison. With the first, my first baby, I was very stringent about the exercise guidelines, so I didn't move as much as I should have right after having my baby. When I was up and moving almost immediately, because I got out of the hospital sooner. I felt like I was able to regain more strength just by making sure I was moving more every day. I wasn't lifting weights or anything, but making sure, you get outside and get fresh air and sunlight. We know that sunlight, helps with vitamin D production. And then also back to the digestion thing, like a few days after birth, you want to help as much as you can. As you're knowing now, it was pretty traumatizing for me to experience that, but I did everything I can the second time to make sure I was ambulating and staying active as in moderation to keep things, moving down there.
How about you, Lori?
I mean, I agree, like I always suggest fresh air and sunshine, going for a walk. And a good rule of thumb is I don't think you should do heavy exercise, obviously, until, moderate walking, I think is great. Getting outside, walking, sunshine, it gets, like she said, the bowels going, but it also releases endorphins, which I think is really important. You can do like moderate or like restorative or yin yoga, I think is great. I think also tuning into your body. I think we've gotten so caught up with, we should be listening to the guidelines and all that stuff. And absolutely you should listen to the doctors 100%. I mean, listen to what they're saying about exercise and when it's okay and when it's not. But at the same time, tune into your body. And if something doesn't feel right, don't do it. And if you feel like going for a walk and you have the energy, do it, but don't push yourself. And maybe it's like, maybe today just feel like sitting on the ground, breathing and stretching. Maybe I don't want to do anything. And I think you give yourself the permission instead of pushing through when you really are not wanting to, and if it's like, yeah, I feel like going for a walk right now. It's beautiful out. I'm going to go walk around the block. I'm going to go walk the neighborhood a little bit. Like nothing's wrong with that. But if you're exhausted and you're like, I really should go for a walk, don't do it.
I absolutely agree. Like these days, because of the social media, like you see a lot of like new moms, they're doing like really crazy exercises. And as you said, again, don't compare yourself with others, but I can see it's a challenge for new moms these days because they use the social media and they see and they say, oh, maybe I should do it. But I think individuals are very different, like their capabilities are also different. Like for someone, because they're used to doing like heavy exercise, it's easy to do it postpartum, like in even after like few weeks, but some other people it's not possible. So I think it's a really important thing to just listen to body, as you mentioned, and make sure that.
And it's also, it's just this is a really important time. So it's like it's 6 weeks of your life. It's 1 month of your life that you really it's 40 days. Make that a priority because you get out and work out again afterwards. You can get out and do whatever you're going to be doing. But it's like, it's not in the scheme of your life. It's not that long. And it's a very important piece that you need to integrate.
That's very true. It reminded me of like some research related to repletion. I don't know, Michelle, you've seen those like very limited studies on like when you give birth, you need to replete some nutrients, and for some of them it may take like months to replete. Yeah. So we need to allow our body like to be nourished and also like to rest and recover. It's very important on the exercise side and also on the nutrition side.
A lot of people actually, because of the vitamins being called prenatals, it doesn't occur to them to keep taking it after they give birth, even if they are lactating. And so then they're really not replenishing a lot of their losses, or that you haven't been taking care of yourself, or maybe you didn't do the right exercises or whatever. But I think in other countries, they really kind of address this, even talk about that here in the hospital. Like definitely both times for me, I didn't have anyone mention, make sure you're carrying the baby a certain way, or don't get up from the bed this way. And, when you're going for a run, like make sure you breathe a certain way. Like I had to figure all these things out myself. And it makes a huge impact on your digestion, your posture, everything from the way that you digest your food to like just so many different things that we don't even think about. So it's important to pay attention to your body and like see what could potentially be wrong that's not your fault and could be fixable.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all the great tips. I think we got so many good input. I think many moms can benefit from what's discussed at this panel today. I think my main conclusion would be taking care of yourself is not a luxury. It's an essential part of being a new mom. And hopefully we have like more opportunities later on to have like more discussion on this topic. I think I personally really enjoyed it, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it too. Well, to the better future for all the moms. And thanks so much for your time, for your input, for your wisdom and knowledge. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you, Mastaneh, and all the Ritual team for organizing.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a wonderful day.